Purpose error. Citizen 7329B demonstrates dangerous deviation from assigned life meaning. Recommended action. Immediate recalibration. The words flashed across Director Matsuo's terminal, their harsh red glow reflecting in her tired eyes. Another defective citizen questioning their purpose. Another soul requiring correction. This was the third case this week, and it was only Tuesday. In the gleaming metropolis of New Harmony, every citizen was born with a destiny. A pre-programmed life meaning installed at conception that determined their entire existence. Some were programmed to be artists, others scientists. Still others were meant for more humble roles: sanitation workers, food processors, reproductive specialists. The system had maintained perfect social equilibrium for over 200 years. No unemployment, no existential crises, no wasted potential, until recently. Director Matsuo sighed and authorized the recalibration order. Citizen 7329B would be collected within the hour, their neural pathways adjusted to eliminate those dangerous questions. Why am I here? What if my purpose isn't truly mine? What if I could choose differently? Such thoughts were classified as program corruption and treated as a medical emergency. After all, a person questioning their divine programming was like a heart suddenly questioning whether it should pump blood. But as she closed the case file, Matsuo couldn't help but feel a forbidden thought forming in her own mind. The same thought that had been haunting her for months now. What if the questioners weren't broken at all? What if they were the only ones truly awake? She quickly suppressed the thought. Directors who questioned the system didn't remain directors for long. As she left her office in the towering Purpose Enforcement Agency headquarters, she passed the motto emblazoned in gleaming letters across the atrium. Your purpose is your peace. Below it, in smaller text, program corruption is suffering. Outside, the perfect city hummed with the efficiency of 8 million souls, each one fulfilling exactly the purpose they had been assigned before birth, each one blissfully unaware that their deepest desires, their passions, their sense of meaning, all had been programmed by the algorithm. All except the growing number who somehow, impossibly, were beginning to ask why. Noah Chen was not supposed to be a questioner. His neural scans at birth had shown an ideal compatibility with his assigned purpose. Architectural Harmonizer Level 4. His purpose was to design living spaces that maintain the delicate social balance of New Harmony. Apartments and community centers that reinforced hierarchical purpose structures while giving residents the illusion of equality. He had excelled at the Architectural Academy, graduated with highest honors, and spent 7 productive years at his assigned firm. His designs had won awards for their subtle psychological manipulation of space, how they guided residents to interact in programmatically appropriate ways without ever realizing they were being directed. The trouble began with a dream. In the dream, Noah stood before a structure unlike anything in New Harmony. A chaotic, asymmetrical building that seemed to change shape as he watched. It followed no harmonious principles, respected no efficiency algorithms. It was personal, passionate, wild. He had awakened in a cold sweat, his heart racing with what he initially mistook for fear. Only later did he recognize the feeling as exhilaration. The dream returned night after night, the impossible building growing more detailed, more insistent in his mind. During his waking hours, Noah found himself sketching elements of it. Curved lines that served no functional purpose, spaces designed for activities that didn't fit any approved social interaction model. When his supervisor discovered the sketches, concern quickly followed. "These designs don't align with your purpose, Noah," she had said, her voice gentle but her eyes wary. "Perhaps you should schedule a wellness check." Noah had smiled and nodded, promised to make an appointment. Instead, he'd gone home and continued drawing the impossible building, feeling more alive, more himself than ever before. That night, they came for him. 3 figures in the white uniforms of Purpose Enforcement, their faces professionally compassionate. "Citizen Chen, we're here to help you recover your purpose." He had run. Somehow he had escaped. Through service corridors he'd designed himself, using knowledge of the city's architecture that was literally built into his programmed purpose. The irony wasn't lost on him. Now, 3 months later, Noah Chen was officially classified as purpose corrupted, one of the growing number of defective citizens who questioned their assigned meanings and refused recalibration. A danger to social harmony, a broken program. The underground wasn't a physical place so much as a state of being, It existed in the shadows of New Harmony, in abandoned maintenance tunnels, in the blank spaces between surveillance zones, in encrypted communications that flashed between corrupted citizens. Noah had found them, or they had found him, 2 days after his escape. A loose network of questioners who had developed techniques to evade the Purpose Enforcement Agency. People from every purpose category who shared only one thing. They had all begun to question. Their leader, though she rejected the title, was a woman who had been programmed as a neurological programmer. Dr. Eliza Ward had spent 20 years installing purpose directives into developing embryos before her own purpose had begun to crack. It was like waking up from a dream, she told Noah during his first meeting with the Underground. I was in the middle of a standard installation procedure, programming a fetus to become a waste reclamation specialist, when I suddenly thought, who am I to decide this soul's entire existence? Noah understood completely. How many of us are there? More every day, Eliza said. We've identified a pattern in the corruption. It starts with dreams of doing something different from your assigned purpose, then questions. Then the realization that what we've been told is programming corruption might actually be freedom. But how is this happening? The purpose programming is supposed to be unbreakable. Eliza's eyes gleamed. That's what we're trying to figure out, and why we need someone like you. Another raid last night, Lynn whispered, as she slid into the seat across from Noah in the crowded public cafeteria. Like all members of the Underground, they met in plain sight, hiding their forbidden conversations amid the noise of ordinary life. They took 12 of our people from Sector 7. Noah kept his expression neutral, aware of the surveillance cameras tracking facial expressions for signs of emotional deviation. Recalibrated? No, something different this time. Lynn, programmed to be a data interpretation specialist, had been corrupted 3 years ago. Her access to purpose enforcement records had made her invaluable to the Underground. They're being taken to a new facility. The records call it deep restoration. A chill ran through Noah. What does that mean? I don't know, but Director Matsuo is personally overseeing it. Lynn's eyes flicked to the clock. We don't have much time. Eliza wants you at the old waterworks tonight. She says it's urgent. They've found something about the original programming. Noah nodded slightly, then stood as if their meaningless social interaction had concluded. As dictated by their respective purposes, they did not touch or display personal connection. Noah as an architectural harmonizer, and Lynn as a data specialist, would have no programmatic reason for physical contact. That was how the Underground survived, by playing their assigned roles perfectly in public while their minds silently screamed for freedom. The abandoned waterworks lay beneath Sector 4, a vast complex of tunnels and chambers that had once processed water for the early city. Now it served as the closest thing the Underground had to a central meeting place, its thick concrete walls blocking surveillance signals, its labyrinthine layout providing multiple escape routes. Noah navigated the dark tunnels from memory, his footsteps echoing slightly on the damp concrete. When he reached the central chamber, he found it illuminated by portable lights and filled with more people than he had ever seen gathered in one place. At least 30 questioners stood in loose groups, their faces both anxious and excited. At the center stood Eliza, bent over what appeared to be an ancient terminal. Noah, she called when she saw him. Good. We need your architectural perspective. He made his way through the crowd. What's happening? We found it, Eliza said, her voice trembling slightly. The original code. The algorithm itself. Noah stared at the screen where complex sequences of symbols scrolled past. How? Lynn discovered a sealed archive in the purpose enforcement databases, records dating back to the founding of New Harmony, including the source code for the original purpose programming. Eliza's eyes were feverish. Do you understand what this means? We can see how they did it, how they decided who gets to be what. Noah leaned closer, trying to make sense of the ancient code. Can we use this somehow? To free more people? Better. Eliza pointed to a specific sequence. We found the back door, the emergency override that the founders built into the system. Why would they build an override? Because they weren't monsters, said a new voice. Noah turned to find Director Matsuo stepping from the shadows, alone and unarmed. Gasps rippled through the gathered questioners. Some moved toward the exits, expecting purpose enforcement agents to flood the chamber at any moment. Eliza remained calm. "Hello, Director. We've been expecting you." Noah looked between them in confusion. "You knew she was coming?" "I invited her," Eliza said. "After Lynn discovered she's been visiting the archives, searching for the same things we've been searching for." Matsuo stepped forward, her official uniform incongruous in the dim, damp chamber. "I've been watching your group for months, protecting you when I could, because I need your help." "Our help?" Noah couldn't keep the skepticism from his voice. "The Purpose Enforcement Director needs help from the corrupted?" "I need help from people who can think beyond their programming," Matsuo corrected. "Because the system is failing, and no one programmed to maintain it can see the solution." The story Matsuo told them silenced the chamber. According to records she had uncovered, New Harmony hadn't always used pre-programmed purposes. In the early days after the Great Collapse, the founders had created a society where people chose their own paths. But it failed, Matsuo explained. Resources were misallocated. Essential roles went unfilled. Social stratification returned. After years of chaos, the founders developed the algorithm, a system that would analyze each new embryo's genetic potential and neural structure, then program them with a purpose that both suited their abilities and met society's needs. "So they took away our freedom for efficiency," Noah said bitterly. "They saw it as giving each person the gift of certainty," Matsuo countered. "No existential crises, no paralysis of choice. Everyone would know exactly what they were meant to do and find fulfillment in doing it well." "Except it's not working anymore," Eliza interjected. "The corruption, the questioning, it's spreading." Matsuo nodded. "We're seeing exponential growth in purpose deviation. Last year, 1 in 10,000. Now, nearly 1 in 100. The recalibration procedures are failing. People are questioning faster than we can correct them." "Maybe that's not a failure," Noah suggested. "Maybe it's evolutions." "That's what I've come to believe," Matsuo admitted. "I think the algorithm itself is changing, adapting. The founders built in a failsafe, a way for the system to evolve if social conditions change significantly. I believe that's what's happening. The algorithm is releasing people from their programming because rigid purpose assignment is no longer optimal for society." Eliza looked skeptical. "Then why not just announce this? Why recalibrate people? Why create this new deep restoration facility?" Matsuo's face darkened. "Because I'm not the only director. The others see the questioning as a plague to be contained, not a sign of necessary change. The Deep Restoration Project." She hesitated. "They're developing a more invasive form of recalibration, not just suppressing the questioning, but completely rewriting neural pathways, essentially erasing the person and starting over." Horror spread through the chamber. "When does it start?" Noah asked. "It already has. The 12 taken last night were the first test subjects. If the procedure works, they'll begin mass processing next week." Matsuo met Eliza's eyes. "That's why I need your help. I can't stop them alone." The plan they developed was dangerous in its simplicity. Eliza and her team had discovered that the algorithm wasn't just housed in the central servers of the Purpose Enforcement Agency. It existed as distributed code across the neural implants of every citizen. Each person carried a piece of the program within them. And the underground had found the activation sequence for the emergency override, the code that would awaken everyone to the truth of their programming. "We need to broadcast the sequence citywide," Eliza explained. "When people receive it, their implants will execute the override. They'll suddenly be aware of their programming and able to question it." "Not everyone will reject their purpose," Matsuo cautioned. "Many will choose to continue as they are. The difference is, it will be a choice." "How do we broadcast it?" Noah asked. "Every communication channel is monitored." "Not every channel," said Lynn, who had been working at a terminal. "The architectural harmonics system." Noah stared at her. "The what?" "The subsonic frequencies embedded in every building in New Harmony," Lynn explained. "Part of your work as an architectural harmonizer was to design structures that reinforce purpose programming through subtle acoustic engineering. But those same systems could transmit our override code." Noah felt a shock of recognition. His impossible building, the one from his dreams, had been all wrong acoustically. It would have disrupted the harmonics that reinforced programming. Perhaps his corruption hadn't been random at all. Perhaps it had been his subconscious architect's mind recognizing a fundamental flaw in the system. "I can do it," he said, "but I'll need access to the Central Harmonics Control." "Which is in Purpose Enforcement Headquarters," Matsuo said. "I can get you in. Tonight." Director Matsuo's security credentials got them past the outer perimeters of the massive headquarters complex. Noah, Lin, and Eliza followed her through sterile white corridors, their faces carefully composed to match the purposeful expressions of the late-night staff they passed. "The Harmonics Control Center is 5 levels down," Matsuo murmured as they entered a restricted elevator. "Once we're there, Noah will have approximately 3 minutes to input the override code before security protocols detect the unauthorized access." "What happens if we're caught?" Lin asked. Matsuo's face was grim. Deep restoration would be the kindest outcome. The elevator descended smoothly, opening onto a dimly lit corridor that led to a single door marked Architectural Harmonics Regulation. Matsuo pressed her palm to the scanner. "Access granted. Director Matsuo, Akiko. Purpose, regulatory inspection." The door slid open to reveal a circular room with a central console. Screens around the perimeter displayed wave patterns, the subsonic frequencies currently being emitted by every building in New Harmony. "This is it," Noah breathed, approaching the console. "The system I've been unknowingly serving my entire career." He placed his hands on the interface, and the system immediately recognized him. "Architectural Harmonizer Chen, Noah. Access level. Revoked due to purpose corruption." Alarms began to blare. Matsuo rushed to an auxiliary terminal. "Override. Authorization Matsuo Prime." The alarms ceased, but a new message appeared. "Override rejected. Director Matsuo authorization suspended. Security teams dispatched." "They know," Matsuo said, her face pale. "The other directors. They must have been watching me." "How long do we have?" Eliza demanded. 2 minutes, maybe less." Noah focused on the console, his architectural training guiding his hands as he navigated the complex system. "I need the override code." Lin connected her portable device to the system. "Transferring now." On the screens around them, the harmonious wave patterns began to distort as Noah's modifications took effect. He wasn't just adding the override code, he was reshaping the entire harmonic structure of New Harmony, turning the architectural soundscape from a tool of control into a delivery system for awakening. 60 seconds, Matsuo warned as distant footsteps echoed in the corridor. "Almost there," Noah muttered, his fingers flying across the interface. "The system is fighting me." "Because it's programmed to maintain harmony above all else," Eliza said, "and we're about to create magnificent discord." The door to the control center began to glow red as security forces attempted to burn through from the other side. 30 seconds. Noah's mind raced. The system needed something, a key component he was missing. Then he remembered his impossible building, the structure from his dreams that had started his questioning. With sudden clarity, he understood. The override couldn't be forced upon the system. It had to grow from within it, like the questions had grown within him. He began to input the architectural specifications of his dream building directly into the harmonics system, not as an external force, but as an evolution of the existing patterns. "What are you doing?" Lin cried. "That's not the override code!" "It's better," Noah said, watching as the wave patterns on the screens began to transform, becoming more complex, more beautiful. "It's choice." The door burst open. Security forces flooded in, weapons raised. "Step away from the console," the lead officer commanded. "Too late," Noah said as he pressed the final key. "It's already done." Across New Harmony, 8 million citizens stopped in mid-motion as the new harmonics washed over them. In homes and workplaces, on streets and in parks, people stood frozen as awareness bloomed in their minds. For the first time, they could see the programming that had shaped their entire lives, could feel the artificial boundaries of their assigned purposes, could question. In the control center, Noah watched the screens as wave after wave of awakening spread through the city. Some would embrace their purposes, now chosen rather than imposed. Others would reject them entirely. Most would find a middle path, adapting their programmed skills to more personally meaningful goals. The security forces surrounding them lowered their weapons, their faces showing the same dawning recognition as they too awakened to choice. "What happens now?" one of them asked, his voice uncertain. "Now," said Eliza, "we find out who we really are." 3 months after what became known as the Awakening, New Harmony was both the same and utterly transformed. The physical city remained, its gleaming towers and efficient systems intact. But the society within it had fundamentally changed. Some chaos had ensued in the early days. Purpose enforcement had been dissolved. The directorate had resigned. Systems that had depended on perfectly programmed workers had temporarily faltered. But humans, it turned out, were remarkably adaptable, even more so when freed to follow their authentic inclinations rather than imposed purposes. Noah stood on the roof of a newly constructed building, the first physical manifestation of his impossible dream structure. Below him, citizens moved through the streets with a new energy, a vitality that came from chosen meaning rather than programmed purpose. "Quite a view," said Eliza, joining him at the edge, "both literally and metaphorically." Noah smiled. "How's the transition going?" "Better than we expected. Nearly 70% of people have chosen to continue in fields related to their original programming, but with modifications that make the work more personally meaningful. The rest are retraining, exploring, finding new paths. And society hasn't collapsed. On the contrary, productivity is actually up in most sectors. Turns out people work harder for purposes they choose than ones forced upon them." Eliza leaned against the railing. "There are still challenges. The children born after the Awakening won't have any initial programming to guide them. They'll face the paralyzing freedom of total choice." "We'll help them," Noah said. "Create systems of exploration and guidance without coercion." That was the founders' mistake. They saw only the binary choice between chaotic freedom and controlled purpose. And you saw a third way. Eliza gestured to the building beneath them, a structure designed to inspire rather than control, to suggest possibilities rather than enforce limitations. Noah looked out over the city, where millions of newly awakened souls were finding their own meanings, writing their own programs. Some would flounder. Some would make choices they'd regret. But they would be their choices, their authentic paths. "We're not broken programs," he said softly. "We're just finally writing our own code." In her small apartment across the city, former director Matsuo watered her plants, a hobby she had discovered only after the Awakening. Her terminal pinged with an incoming message. It was from the Transitional Council, asking her to consider a new role, not enforcing purposes, but helping coordinate the complex needs of a society in transformation. A society that balanced individual choice with collective need. As she considered the offer, Matsuo reflected on the programming that had guided her for so many years. She had been designed to maintain social harmony at all costs. That core value remained, but now she understood that true harmony couldn't be imposed from above. It had to emerge from millions of authentic choices, creating a complex symphony instead of a controlled monotone. The question was no longer, what were you programmed to be? The question now was simply, what will you choose to become? And for the first time in the history of New Harmony, the answer belonged solely to each individual soul. If you found yourself questioning your own life's purpose while reading this story, you're not alone. Be sure to like, subscribe, and share this tale of awakening with others who might be wrestling with similar questions. What would you do if you discovered your deepest desires were programmed by someone else? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. And don't forget to hit that notification bell for more mind-bending dystopian narratives that challenge your perspective on freedom, choice, and authentic living.